are live with live action roleplay with
Ryan Omega
and Kai Norman
and Cynthia Marie. And we have a special guest. Want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Mikey Strange.
Awesome. So real quick, those of you who don't know who Mikey Strange is, Mikey is a writer and artist living in San Francisco. He's been storytelling at LARP for 20 years and staff at games like Avalon, Wonderlust, and most recently, Twin Mask. He's known for making puzzles, riddles, and pulling off long cons. So thank you for spending some time with us, Mikey.
Those long cons are the best.
Right? All right, guys. I'm the one who's hosting today, or leading the hosting here. So it's going to be a little bit different format than what you guys are used to. But let's go ahead and start off. What the heck are we drinking, Ryan?
All right, I am drinking Pellegrino, tangerine, and wild strawberry.
Yum, yum, yum.
Mm-hmm.
Mikey, what about you? What are you drinking?
This is a creamed sherry. I just got these really fancy glasses, so I feel like a boss. But that's what I'm drinking. Yeah.
Nom. And Kai?
I am drinking an energy drink like, I don't know, a chump.
And I made a wild concoction of cranberry juice and rosé wine.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah,
that sounds really good.
It's really good. I had a little bit of cranberry juice left, and I was like, well, let me just like mix the two and see what happens.
That's awesome. Sounds refreshing.
Awesome. It is. It's yummy. How about we move on to shout outs? Who's got a shout out? Anyone?
I do. I totally have a shout out.
Go for it.
So my shout out is to all of the, because the episode's about puzzles, I am shouting out to everyone in the Guild of Academics at Twin Mask, all the puzzle kids who spend so much time working on these puzzles and trying to solve them. They are my heart, and they give me so much joy. So this is all about you guys.
I'm going to be shouting out my friend Nathan. I will be working with him when I fly out to Iowa next week, where I will be working on pre-producing a movie.
What?
And so it's a big undertaking. We aren't completely sure if it's going to 100% happen. However, my job is to be looking through everything, and he's giving me a chance to be able to try something really big with an award-winning script. So let's see if this happens.
That is amazing.
Crossing my fingers.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Kai,
Cool.
what about you?
So my Dystopia Rising game is this coming weekend going to be trying out the online format of things. I've got several people I'm going to shout out. One is a wonderful game designer by the name of Christian. He does incredible work, and he's the one who built the roleplay system that we're going to be using, and he made it custom for us. And then I've got Tobias as my logistics guy, who has been creating all of the background of everything, including coding bots for Discord.
What?
And then I have Shay, who has been a guest on our show as well, recently in fact, and they are going to be, or have already been involved in managing all of the stories that we're going to be putting out and the modules that we're going to be running. So I don't think I could have done any of that type of stuff on my own, and I'm really glad that they are here to work together with me and get it done.
Wow.
Yay, that sounds awesome.
Yay.
I've got two shout outs. So in staying consistent, shout out to everyone who is still fighting the good fight. Keep going. You guys are awesome. Everybody, everything that you're contributing to Black Lives Matter, to helping out with COVID, to anything that you're doing to participate and help this world better. Thank you so much. My second shout out is to my Siren sisters. Enough said. I love you guys. All right, so we're moving into the topic of the show, which is puzzles, escape rooms, and storytelling. I looked up the definition of a puzzle because I thought it's always fun to start off with the definition so that we can all kind of baseline what it is. So a puzzle is a game, toy, or problem designed to test ingenuity or knowledge. However, The other definition that I really liked is a puzzle. It causes someone to feel confused because they cannot understand or make sense of something, which is me when I saw puzzles all the time. So you guys are all fabulous puzzle makers. So the reason why I asked to host today is because I would like to learn a few things about putting puzzles together. So please help me. Okay, here we go. So starting with easy questions, I'm going to kind of just go around. Which way? There we go. Okay, we're going to go down first to Mikey. So what inspired you to get into puzzles? Just as a general sense.
You know, I'm kind of a little shite every now and then, and I, as a kid, found puzzles to be one of those things where I'm clever. I'm one of the people that I don't think that I'm like super intelligent. I don't think I'm intelligent. I think I'm very clever. And so I felt like puzzles were sort of the equalizer for me. So I was always like doing weird things with my friends, like saying, oh, there's like, you know, being young, I'd like say, oh, there's this, you know, treasure hidden out in the woods. We better go find it. And I would create little puzzles for my friends. And this is really early. And I always felt like I don't know, I felt like fulfilled by that. Like I felt really like happy and like weaving a mystery and like seeing sort of the face of someone like solve something is really satisfying. So I think those were probably the things that got me into doing the majority of my puzzles, or at least set me on that path.
Right on. Kai, what about you?
I've done a couple of escape rooms, and it didn't fully click with me until I was at a Gen Con Indianapolis one year, and it was just before we were going to start running our Dystopia Rising games. So it's the first LARP that I've ran. And I went through this kind of like mini LARP experience called True Dungeon, which is kind of like a pay-to-play, series of escape rooms that are kind of mixed with a bunch of other little mini games. And it was interesting. It was kind of fun, very difficult, but it left me kind of thinking how I might do certain things or try and deliver a story in like that kind of format of letting players learn things through the actual act of solving puzzles and like dealing with those kinds of interesting conundrums.
Nice. That sounds awesome. Ryan, what about you? What got you inspired to do puzzles?
When I was a kid, I didn't spend my money on comic books or anything that was sort of like a Harry Potter type series back in the day. I spent my money on two things, Mad Magazine and logic puzzle books. And so a lot of the different types of logic puzzle boxes where you had to look at several clues and then cross out certain squares to figure out what the correct answer was kind of my jam. I also loved lateral thinking puzzles where they give you a very basic idea of what a crime is and you have to figure out what it is, and it's never the obvious thing. And I absolutely loved those as a kid, and I now have a love for puzzles since then.
Right on. So I guess, like, as I mentioned, I'm not that great at puzzles. I'm actually a pattern person, which is I guess a puzzle within itself. So growing up, I did a lot of word searches, so I can basically run through word searches pretty quick. And also playing, the game Simon with all the patterns and stuff like that. Where you had to go like super fast. So, or Mbop It. I was really good at that, which I know it's not like one of the logic puzzles, but it does provide a sense of confusion for people. So those are kind of like my favorite stuff, which leading into my next question, Ryan, I think you already answered this one. So this is for Mikey and Kai. What puzzles do you enjoy solving?
Do you want to go first, Kai?
Sure. I find that the majority of the puzzles that I tend to stumble across are of a very specific type. And I'll go into what exactly those are a little later. But they're called Einstein Puzzles. And the thing that I like about them is you will experience so many puzzles introduced in an escape room or interactive format and have no idea they are essentially all the same damn puzzle.
For me, I can say that if one wanted to know like exactly what like my most favorite kind of puzzles are. Not right now, because you're watching now, but later, Google something called Missing Since January. And it was a video game, computer game that came out. And it was, if you took Myst, and I think everyone's familiar with Myst. So Myst, like that early 90s-ish game where it was like a lot of puzzles. Like it took Myst and then put it through a filter of like a serial killer. And so the whole idea is that you were like chasing down this serial, even the packaging of this video game was in like an evidence bag. It was brilliant. And I don't know why it didn't catch on as much as it did, but I loved it. And every puzzle in there was just, it had like a visceral, emotional, like you had to go and scavenge hunt online. You had to like break into fake, you know, email accounts. Like you had to do all of these different, and it like made you have to think in all of these different ways. And I absolutely loved it. And to this day, it's a huge influence on the kind of puzzles I make. Just because it was just so different than anything I'd ever seen. But yeah, that's the kind of the ones I like, that are just kind of crazy, and they go all different directions, and you have to use a lot of different sort of ideas and strategies to solve them.
That reminds me of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego.
It has a little bit of that feel, yeah, and it was so crazy because they would email you, they would email you clues to your actual email address, and it was like this really cool alternate reality game. But yeah, Missing Since January, it was so good, so good.
That sounds. I'm gonna have to look that up later.
So good, terrifying. It's good.
Oh my God, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego was one of the games I loved playing repeatedly as a kid. Like all the different where in the world, where in time. Oh, yeah. I loved all of that.
It was so good.
It was hard.
So good. It was so good. The whole time.
All right. So yeah, go ahead.
No, I was saying the whole time you didn't realize you were learning, which was genius. Like they just they fed that right to you, and I can hear to this day. I can hear like national the anthems and know what they are because they used to play those, and you had to like figure out which one it was. So good, so brilliant.
All right, so on kind of similar topic, and Mikey, I think you kind of already touched on this. So to you, Ryan, what type of puzzles do you enjoy making?
So I feel like with some of these puzzles, I would like to kind of infuse the puzzle with some kind of story. So I don't usually do isolated, like one-off puzzles. So a good example would be a couple of years ago for Bruce Monarch's birthday party LARP, museum LARP. I was given the Infernal Room to design. And so the idea behind that whole LARP is that a ritual was cast, and you had to assemble 5 different parts of a spell, bring it together to break the spell and be able to leave the house. I was given the Infernal Room, so everything in my room we kind of thought had to be demonic. So instead of thinking demonic, because I didn't want to have a lot of demon things, I thought, what if the person was obsessed with heaven and trying to be alive and exorcism? And so instead of having a lot of demonic things, instead I had a few religious items. I had scotch tape of crosses all over in crazy configurations. The whole place was backwards written Catholic exorcism prayers.
Wow.
And this way it had a feel of somewhat obsessed, and it felt so disturbing. Some of the players said, I can't go into that room, even though there was nothing obviously evil about it. It would just look like somewhat obsessed in that room. At the bottom of the screen, you see Memento Mori, which is the pictures of dead people, but assembled as if they were alive. And that was part of the puzzle. And what I loved about having that storyline was that, again, I was not trying to be demonic at all. I was thinking obsession. And it was the game that Jason Carl played when he came to this game. And when he was done, he said it was his favorite room. And it inspired him to ask us, hey, do you want to run a vampire game? And that's why we started Hollywood Forever.
Crazy.
Right on. Kai, what type of puzzles do you like to make?
I feel really bad because I thought I had a moment to bite some food and I did not. That was very well, fully planned. What was the question again? Yes, I'm a professional.
Sorry, I honestly was about to take a sip, like right when we're about to like start, and I was like, the question is, what type of puzzles do you like to make?
Hopefully, our video is. I gave Joe a couple of videos, so those might pop up while I'm talking. But I love making like interesting physical props. I want things to really involve the tactile element. I love running LARPs, and I've never really had the chance to make puzzles in any other format. I've never done it in D&D or anything like that. So being able to create all of these kind of crazy, weird, like interesting story devices is one of my favorite things. And as I said, a lot of my puzzles are Einstein puzzles. Yeah, like for me to really, really enjoy it, it has to just really heavily involve the physicality. And I like the fact that physicality in a puzzle, honestly, doesn't have to happen. The puzzle can be amazing on its own, and the physicality is just essentially dressing. But I love the idea of combining those two things together.
That's such an amazing prop.
Yeah.
Every time I see
so
video
cool.
of it, I'm just just amazing, mind blowing.
So for our listeners, we just played a couple of videos of looks like a nuclear warhead. It's got a timer counting down on it and a whole bunch of wires on the outside, and then you open up a panel and there's a whole bunch of flashing, blinking red lights that you can choose to turn on or off by pressing them. And I think I scared the crap out of everyone in my game. So a good like 120 players saw this and decided, oh God, why are you doing this to us? And all it was a cool, hollow, like upturned, like plastic waste bin with a couple of bits of junk and an old mobile phone with an old like timer app built into it that I just like plopped on the inside. And really, when it comes down to it, like that and a good paint job, and you can make, you can make a lot. It's really fun just kind of putting all those pieces together. As I've said, I love the physicality of it and dressing up a puzzle to make it feel vastly different, because when you start involving the tactile senses, it can really change the tone of a puzzle, I think.
It's so cool.
So just FYI, audience members, we usually do take questions from you guys, so don't think that we're ignoring you. But this next section, I really wanted to kind of hone in on the process making of puzzles and escape rooms. So we're going to hold your questions till the end. Please, please, please ask your questions. Start it with all caps questions so that we can actually read it in the chat later. But don't think I'm ignoring you. I just want to get through these processes so you guys can actually understand how puzzles are made. I want to understand how they're made, right? Yeah, great, cool. So let's start at the top here, really. What is your process of creating puzzles for role-playing games? Do you start with the mechanics? Do you start with more of the story? Kai, I know you wanted to talk about Einstein puzzles. So let's go ahead and start with you. It sounds like you may be gearing towards mechanics of a puzzle first.
Okay, awesome. I'm super excited to do that. I will try to get through this as quickly as possible because I wrote probably too many notes. So let me bring up my little cool thing. So Einstein puzzles are called Einstein puzzles, at least by my understanding, because Einstein created them. The first Einstein puzzle that I'm aware of being created was he created a logic puzzle, and it is strictly a logic puzzle, where it involved kind of I believe it involved the gender, the nationality, and like the color of the house of the tenants of these different buildings. And it was a series of statements that kind of things like, oh, the person who lives next to the Englishman has a yellow roof. The third room down has an Irishman living in it, and so forth. And you use all of these different pieces of information that you're being given to basically kind of just work out where each of those facts and clues go. So hopefully I'll go through this quick, but this is how I make a physical version of an Einstein puzzle. First step, establish a series of objects with variety. It can be almost anything of your creativity. A selection of colored wires on the outside of something, glowing crystals with runes, a series of pipes with different serial codes on them. The important thing is that you have a lot of variety in it, but they all have kind of a similar purpose. After that, you establish a series of activities or actions. For example, the wires have to be cut in a certain order, or the crystals must be placed in the hands of specific statues. And even those statues could be, you know, NPC players wearing gray costumes and reaching out. When you put those things in their hand, maybe there's a chance that they will animate and start attacking you. Or it could be like a dock attached to a wall that you can only attach one of these little pipe props to. So if you kind of think of that like if spreadsheets are your things, you think of the objects along the top and then the action order, the sequence of actions on the side. So after that, and this is the real important part, because up to this point, it's the visual aesthetic. You introduce that set of statements that I said that an Einstein puzzle involves. Written format, I think, is the best because ultimately it's a nice way of delivering all of your facts, and it allows the players to continue to reference and read it or reread it as they are continuing to do the puzzle. Obviously, you can attach a timer to that, and timers are fun in puzzles because they add pressure and urgency to the event. And obviously, when players are under pressure, they are making mistakes and kind of rushing. So that is a fun, you are adjusting the player's emotional state and creating that interface and immersion between character and player. And I love the fact that you can use puzzles to actually help mesh a player together like that. And they don't realize it's happening. It's invisible to them to a degree. The way that you deliver those written evidence could be, you know, stone tablets carved, you know, with messages, or a series of seemingly random post-it notes just kind of put all over the place, or a handwritten journal with entries, or a printed technical guide manual. If you want to do it other than you know, written, you can even do like a series of small audio tapes and a couple of mini tape players, so the players have to like rewind and play it over and over again to actually make notes. But obviously that's going to make it harder. So the statements of this, they are the super important part, because this is how you introduce story. And if you create story, again, the players are motivated to actually continue forward with it. If you just stuff them in the room and you say, get out the room, but you don't give them a reason why, again, they're going to flounder. So try and weave it into your world. Maybe those statues are ancient heroes from your lore. And when you're delivering your statements that are written on those stone tablets, you kind of write it in, you know, that corny ye old English kind of poetry method. And you deliver kind of lore and history of the characters while you're also kind of slipping in the clues and the facts that are related to the, as I said, the action and the object. You know, but there's a lot of ways of delivering that narrative. So those statements, they must, as I said, include clues or facts about your objects and how they connect to the actions. Never give the players all of the statements in the order that you want them to do it, because that is far too easy for them. And mixing it up makes it a lot more exciting for them to actually kind of process. I lost my spot. I am so sorry. Yeah, so And the important thing is kind of have a few different ways that your clues can kind of apply into. I am so sorry. My dog is whining at me because the door wasn't
I was
properly
wondering
closed.
if it was coming outside
I'm
my
like,
window or something. I was like, what is happening?
yeah, so she's doing a great job of distracting me. However,
She's giving you a puzzle.
So ideally, huh?
She's giving you a puzzle to figure out.
Right? Yeah, it's making it more difficult.
That pressure.
Ideally, you are giving the players, through the statements that you give them, pieces of information that will combine into the correct answer for that object to be carried out by that action. An example could be, as a statement, always ensure the third wire cut is a blue wire. Now, that establishes that there is a sequence of them being cut, so you're introducing your action, and you're also describing, the object and the way the object is formed. Another of the same could be the first wire you cut must be the fourth one down. Now you're not even referencing the color, you're actually referencing the order that the objects are displayed. So having these different ways of having clues that you kind of slide and connect together is how you give the players these little nuggets of logic that they can fuse into a single answer, or hopefully. Now, here's where it gets super evil. Let's see. And, having straightforward ones is perfectly fine. But if you want to mix it up, you can make those statements obscure or even excluding too, like the statement I just mentioned, the first wire you must cut must be the fourth one down. Now you add, unless it is green. And that has changed the whole context of that statement, and the players now have to engage it in a different way. I love inserting a few trap statements. That isn't wrong information, it's just unnecessary information. For example, if there's 4 wires, I have a statement that talks about the 5th wire. There is no 5th wire. But the players will still read that information and go, oh, this is really important, we got to do this. And then they find out there isn't a 5th wire because they relook at it, or you mention a color that isn't even an option. That types of things, again, kind of, keeps the player's mind going. And I swear I'm almost done on this. Now, sometimes you can even skip like the last statements that you expect the players to perform. If you've got 4 objects and 4 actions, then you only need to tell them the answers of 3 of them, and they will, as process of elimination, work out what the 4th one is, because there's only 1 of each left. And, basically that's how I make those puzzles. Any questions? Does that make sense?
No, it definitely makes sense.
Yeah. Actually, when I was making escape rooms, I had read a little bit on this theory, so I totally understand what you're saying. It's really rad, yeah.
But that, like, all of those different ways that I framed that can give completely different experiences for a player, and they're all individually satisfying on so many different levels. You're disarming a bomb because, well, it's a bomb and you don't want to blow up. That's pretty obvious. But maybe, you're trying to cure, like, develop some kind of magical reagent that's going to cure something that's going on outside of this room.
Mm-hmm.
The more you tie story and motivation into your puzzles, the more people jump into it and enjoy it. If you just have the objective of like, yeah, get through this room because we want you to, it's not as exciting. And yeah, sure, you do it and it might be enjoyable, but I find the best escape rooms are the ones that actually have a full narrative in a story.
It sounds sort of like what Ryan was talking about, the kind of things that got him into puzzles was sort of those word puzzles of like process of elimination, by saying like the neighbor, is this or that, or you have to sort of do the little people down the side or apartments at the top, and then you have to like put X's to figure out which ones aren't. It's like that, but then putting it into like a physical form. Absolutely.
And the wonderful thing, just when you're building these types of things, did I? No, okay, good. Just make sure to kind of double check what you're doing, and even better, like once you've created your puzzle on paper, give it to a few friends and ask them to time themselves while they try to just solve it on paper, because that will help you understand how much time you want to give the players to solve it, because you add a little extra or maybe even double it. But experiment and always be aware that it is very easy for you to fuck up your puzzle and include an object that is the answer to multiple actions. And when that happens, that can cause a lot of problems. So double and triple checking what you're doing. Oh my God, so important.
Real talk. I've done it once in my life. Thankfully not at Twin Mask, but I've done it once in my life, and I will never do it again, where I put a puzzle out that didn't have, you couldn't solve it because I missed putting something in. And it was the absolute worst feeling ever. And the reason why you have to absolutely double check and check again and have someone else do it, and you do it again and do it again and again and again, is because if you're creating, like, your PCs are trusting you that you're giving them this task to do, and they're going to take their time because they trust you, and they're going to take their time, and they're going to take this puzzle and they're going to rack their brains out. They're going to spend their whole weekend racking over this puzzle trying to figure it out. If they knew that there wasn't a solution, or that there was something wrong with it, you lose all credibility as a puzzle master. And then people are going to go, I don't want to put too much time to this because I remember last time I did this. So, and it didn't turn out. So you really have to be careful, like your sort of like how you are perceived, the trust that your players have in you is very important. So be very careful about breaking that trust, because it only takes a few bad puzzles for people to say, you know what, I'm not going to work on those puzzles because I don't want to waste my time.
I have made one mistake in a live game with a puzzle. My players came to me and they were like, kind of processing through it, and they were like, okay, we're going to go cut the puzzle. So I give them a pair of pliers, they go off to the wires, and they start like logically cutting them, and they're like losing their minds because one of my clues, one of my actions is 2 responses. And they're like, either of these could be perfect. And you know what? If you really want to mess with players, then yeah, you can give situations where, they like maybe one of those actions at the end doesn't get cut and they pick one of them, and that's okay because it's like a trick in your puzzle. I wouldn't encourage it. Ultimately, what I done in that situation, since both of those, whichever wire they cut out of those 2 would be correct, I just was fine with, they clicked one and I was like, great, the bomb doesn't explode. You better cut the other one though, or like cut the next one in the sequence kind of thing. So I was lucky that my mistake it didn't put me in a corner where I screwed myself. I'm actually reminded of, the horror thriller series Saw.
Yeah.
The first couple of early ones, I loved those movies. And then there was that one where all of the puzzles were impossible. And even though that was part of the narrative of that story, I fucking hated it. It turned me off. Stopped watching all of the movies because I was mad about it.
It's trash.
All right. So, Mikey, I want to hear a little bit about how you start your puzzles. What's your process? Is it more from a story-related place? Is it from a mechanics? Where do you start?
So, like, I do puzzles, I think similarly like how I would write a mystery novel, right? So like the idea is that you start sort of at the end and then work your way backwards, right? So what I do is I say, what is sort of the function of this puzzle? Like what is it supposed to do? And I take to a few things account. I take into the target audience. So these are sort of my checklists in my head. I say, okay, target audience. Who's the target audience? I'm not going to give like the healer guild who are all about like sunshine and loving people and friendship changes the world kind of people, and give them like a heavy serial killer like Saw type puzzle, like, because it doesn't motivate, it won't motivate them and they won't engage. With puzzles, you have to be careful that you're tailoring them, that they're being tailored to the situation. And so for me, I'm always looking at who is it for. And once I know who is it for, then I start thinking about theme. Like, what am I trying to say? I look at it more like artwork. It's like, what am I trying to convey through this? And that sort of tells me what fonts I'm using, what sort of icons or what kind of drawings or what kind of feel am I using. And so I sort of work backwards. And then once I have all of that, I say, okay, in this analogy, I say, all right, this is going to some mages who are a little dark. And so I'm going to have some, a skull motif. I'm going to have some creepy fonts. I'm going to have sort of like a lot of, creepy elements. And then I say, okay, I know that I want this specific thing from them to solve it. And then I need to encrypt that. And now how do I do that? There's a lot of ways to encrypt like your puzzle. I would always suggest to do it at least 2 or 3 layers of encryption.
So what was the most difficult part for you? Sorry,
especially if you're with a bunch of players who are sort of circling up and all bringing their effort together, they're going to blaze through your puzzle. Because I've found this personally. Some of the players at Twin Mask, there's like 15 of them, and they are brilliant. And there's one of me, and they've thought of 100 ways to fix this or to find this puzzle out. I only thought of a few. And so you really have to sort of encrypt it as much as you can, because you're basically fending off 20 other players. And so you have to make sure that your puzzles have some layers of encryption, otherwise they're just going to go right through them. So once I've encrypted it, then I sort of bring it all together, and I say, okay, I've got who it's the target audience, I have the theme, I have my fonts and my creepitude, I know sort of what I want and what I want to say. I've got the levels of encryption, and now I need to think about one other thing, which is in a game that is high fantasy, it may not be realistic to have a bomb with diodes and wires on it, right? So I have to think about like the genre, like what is available in the game. Like I can't, I would love to be in a game where I could do that kind of stuff, because it opens up, I think, a lot of more doors. But high fantasy, you have to think about like, how is this puzzle getting out? Is it crystals and like I said, like crystals instead of a bomb, and sort of like find how it fits into the genre. And once you have all of that together, you just stew on it until you come up with something. And then you just test it, and test it some more. And then when you think you're done, you test it 2 more times, and then you're ready to go. But that's sort of in a broad sort of way. That's how I go about puzzles.
So, Mikey, one thing that I appreciate about your puzzles is that you reward people for just trying.
I do. Yeah.
I know that one of your first puzzles that came out for AN, I spent, oh my God, I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but I spent about 5 hours at work being like, what is this? What I don't understand. Like I can't do this. But I appreciated the fact that you sent out the message to everybody. It was like, please tell me like who worked on it. Like you weren't asking for the answers or anything, and you gave us story regardless if we solved it or not. So I, as a player, really appreciated the fact that you rewarded us for just even trying.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to sort of the function of puzzles, right? So like there are a lot of different functions and how they play in a game. A lot of the time, you say, here's the function of the puzzle. I want a specific phrase or some sort of in-character information, right? So finish this puzzle, and it's going to give you a clue to do something, right? In some cases, though, putting puzzles out in game is sort of how to case the joint, I think is the term. You case the people who want to be involved in a plot line where you're using a lot of your brain. So like I'm playing a character in this game where I'm an NPC, I'm a supervillain, and I really want to target people who are really emotionally charged and have a lot of cerebral like sort of power and really want to be involved in that kind of storytelling. And what it does for me, that puzzle, not even having to like it being solved, is that the people who are working on it and putting time into it are the kind of people who I want to be involved in that plot, or who are going to enjoy being in that plot. So you can use puzzles not just as a way to convey information. You can also use it to figure out who you should be targeting this story to.
Awesome. So we've touched a lot on puzzles it sounds kind of from the singular point of view. So I kind of want to broaden it a little bit more into escape rooms. Ryan, I know that you designed an escape room, and I designed an escape room for Twin Mask, which was really hard to do. But what was the most difficult part for you, Ryan, when you were designing your escape room?
Let me start off with how I designed the escape room, and then I could easily explain why the part that was difficult. So I think of puzzles as in a very broad sense. So anything that disrupts you from getting your goal where the solution isn't obvious is a puzzle. So I keep it very broad. It's the narrative theory of puzzles. This, for example, when Tesla was barking and we were like, wait, where's that bark coming from? And we were checking ourselves where it was coming from, and we realized, oh, it's Tesla. That's a puzzle in its most simplest sense. And so I use that into designing the escape room. So for me, it's going to be looking at the setting. The setting is very echoey, so I want to play with the sound. It's very dark, so I want to play with the darkness. And I always think of interesting props. So I found a bottle with a saint in it that you had to jiggle the bottle in order for the saint to sit on the throne. And I wanted to use that as part of the puzzle. So I kind of wanted props that almost told a story. And then I think about budget, because ultimately you can have a budget of 0, but you can play with just the setting of even a bare echoey room and turn that into a puzzle. So I always think of what is the most efficient way to be able to tell that story. And ultimately, how do I want someone to feel in that room? I wanted them to be horrified out of their mind while saying very little. And to answer a question that's probably coming up, which is, so what happens if the puzzle doesn't work? I always make sure there's an alternative solution to whatever it is. I also include role play puzzles where you have to act out a thing in order for things to happen. So one of the puzzle pieces, when they discovered an old tomb, which was referenced in, yes, there we go, Joe. The old in this tomb, one of the things in those pages was 2 people must tell a secret. And automatically it brings so much drama and role play into that I don't have to do very much after that. Like the intensity is already felt by the players. I just need to get them through the sequence, and when they reach the end, they reach the end, but they felt something, and that was the important thing about the puzzle.
So what was the most difficult part for you? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. So the most difficult part was trying to make sure that the people felt something, because it's easy to have like blocks and props, and they just do a bunch of fetch quests or a bunch of tasks, and then they're done in an hour, and then it doesn't say anything. It's like, okay, well, that was fine. But if there was like even a little bit of emotion, whether it's anger or sadness or joy or being betrayed, people will remember that puzzle even more.
Yeah.
It sounds, I think we approach puzzles very similarly, because I think of them more like art, like performance art, than really, I know that sounds sort of like snobby and turdish, but like, I think in a way, like puzzles are sort of this performance art, especially when you're putting them in LARPs. It's like, there is like a lot of things that are involved in it, and you are putting people in a situation, like if they have a bomb that they have to defuse, you're putting them in a very dramatic situation. And it's literally laying the stage for a lot of great role playing, a lot of character development. Because I think that, and I've seen this myself, is that when players work hard on something and it just infuriates them, and I've seen this a lot with puzzle kids at Twin Mask, is that they learn about their characters in this weird way, because them and their characters sort of merge a little bit, and they find this common bridge. And they're saying, we're both working on this puzzle, and this is making me feel this way, but it's my character's feeling this way. And they learn about their character and how their character operates. And so challenges like diffusing bombs, or having to like tell secrets, or do a dance, or doing something like that, it sets the stage for like a lot of great like art, basically.
Yeah. I actually approached my escape room actually more like a process. I actually started with the end goal and made a full process map going backwards as to how you're supposed to solve and open up each box and stuff like that. So I'm
That's
a little
awesome.
bit, yeah, I was a little bit different than you guys, but I feel like I failed in mine, because I had two teams that needed to use a clue from another room. And I had the communication set up, but I think one team was solving faster than the other team. So I had to figure out how to like balance the two teams so that they solved the right puzzle at the same time to give the clues. It was complicated, y'all, but yeah,
It sounds fun though.
it was a great idea. For me, there was a lot of issues in terms of timing when it all happened. It happened at like 3:00 in the morning for people. Like it's like derp o'clock,
derp,
or yeah,
derp 30,
where they're just like, I don't want to do this. Wasn't my fault. Other things happened, and it is what it is. But it scared me off from ever doing puzzles and escape rooms, just because some of the players were a little rude to my staff members a little bit.
Really?
To me, yeah, I was actually really hurt by it, which I was like, all right, cool. This isn't my thing. Not going to do it anymore. Cool. So people who are watching, like, we put a lot of time and effort to making these puzzles, and sometimes they don't always work. Like, be kind to the people who did it, because they spent a lot of time putting them together and their own money.
And I think also, like, everyone in LARP, players or staff, should know that everything is an experiment. Like, no matter how many times you've run a battle, no matter how many times you've run escape room or some sort of like dream mod or whatever, it's always an experiment, because there's so many factors that you can't control at a LARP that, like, you're constantly having to think on your feet. And sometimes that at 3:00 in the morning especially ain't gonna happen. And so I think you're right. I think people need to be a little bit kinder about, you know, how much time and effort goes into from a staff side, and just knowing that, you know, everyone does their best to make sure that everyone is having fun and getting the most out of their experience.
Yeah. So I want to jump into these audience questions. You guys have been awesome waiting on these questions. We're going to kind of rapid fire here on the questions. My Twitch has been glitching, so Ryan has been kind enough to actually like just type them all out for me. So, so Zebra D Shaw wants to know, when it comes to creating puzzles for games, do you find that you tend to default to certain types of puzzles, or are you using a mixture depending on what the end result may be / what story you're trying to tell with them? So rapid fire question, whoever wants to take it, go.
I'll take it, because I have a little write up. I have been like trying to rack my brain about, like, I'm very formulaic and I want to have everything on paper, and like I love memos. I'm that kind of nerd. And so I was thinking about this, like anticipating a question like this, and what I've identified is 4 sort of types of puzzles that I've used. So there's puzzles on the pages, right, which is just a puzzle that's on a page that's in character. You're going through, figuring it out. It's a cipher or something like that. There is challenge simulators, which I don't know if we've talked much about, but it's a puzzle that it's simulating the something. So like, I'm going to give you this puzzle, and it's going to simulate you spending the next few hours searching this library to find this thing. So it's not a puzzle that is necessarily in character, but it simulates the act of something else. So I did this I've done this a lot at Twin Mask, where I've given them scrolls and I say, okay, if you want to figure out this, you know, this weird creature, you're going to have to, you know, do a lot of dissecting, and you're going to have to do this and that. And I don't have all the props to do like that. But what I do have is a puzzle that they can sort of put together, and that simulates them figuring out this information. And at the end of it, the reward is they get the lore, or they find the little piece of information they need. So it's on the page puzzles, challenge simulators. There's physical challenges, which is sort of in Kai's realm, where it's a physical thing that you're manipulating, a jigsaw puzzle, a puzzle box, that kind of thing. Sometimes it's even like jumping from stone to stone, like figuring out how you're going to jump through these stones, because we have like those mats that look like stones, and jumping around a mod site trying to figure out how to get from one side to the other. But I mean, it's a purely physical challenge, but it's still a puzzle. And then the last one is fetch puzzles, which are like all about collecting information. Like, go here, talk to this person, get this, you know, little bit of information. Go here. It's like a scavenger hunt. it's information gathering, and those normally lead into another sort of puzzle, but they are a different kind of puzzle in themselves. So I find myself using mostly on-page puzzles that can be handed to someone with no information other than what they see in front of them, and saying, okay, here's a puzzle, figure it out. And those are the ones I really like, because I feel like you can reach a lot of people that way. My goal is always to get as many players involved as possible that want to be involved. And so I go for those generally. I do every now and then dip into sort of the physical challenges. So I'll have like puzzle boxes or like cubes that they have to put together at a mod site. I do a lot of, ones that sort of represent something else. So I use a lot of those, but my favorite, I think, is always on the page puzzles, just because that's my shtick.
Right on. All right, jumping into this next one. Mox Ruby, as a storyteller, what do you do when a puzzle goes unsolved? I think, Ryan, you answered that a little bit. So Kai, what do you think?
I personally haven't had that happen. However, I would, if I'm seeing that my players are experiencing problems, because obviously, either you should, as a narrative storytelling kind of situation, either you have decided what is going to happen if they do not succeed and what is going to happen if they succeed. If you have consequences on both ways, great, you've got a good story on that. If you have written yourself into the assumption that they will solve the puzzle and they need to continue, you've already backed yourself into a corner, so be very careful about that. If that happens, I feel I would probably throw out an NPC that I or someone that's familiar with the puzzle would kind of come into town with, and I would work out a way of story for them to kind of show up and basically offer to help a little bit, and through the process just kind of like try to reframe some of the evidence and help them find the answer without actually giving them the answer.
Can I add something to this question, because I really love this question? Is that okay?
Yeah.
I feel like, and I have puzzles that have gone unsolved, and let me tell you, those are investments. They are investment properties. They're amazing. You will siphon so much unseelie glamour off of those poor children trying to find those puzzles, because let me tell you, there is nothing in this world more satisfying than people trying to get you drunk out of character just to be able to ask you questions about this puzzle. and it's like a fine wine. I'm telling you, there is right now, as we speak, there is a puzzle out in Twin Mask. It's called, they lovingly refer to it as Puzzle 3. And Puzzle 3 has been around for like 2 years. And they've thrown spaghetti at it. They have burnt it. They have thrown it on a rock. They've mailed it to Abu Dhabi. They've done everything to try to figure this puzzle out. And every time they ask me, a tiny darkness in my core it just gets, it's like bigger, gets bigger and bigger, and it just makes me so happy. Fine wine. Unsolved puzzles are fine wine. Changed my mind.
Wow. That
Spicy.
I don't
Super
even know if I can
spicy.
go on right now.
But I would say the caveat there is having the confidence and knowing your puzzle well enough that it is solvable.
Yes.
Because there is a very big difference between my players haven't gotten it yet and
they'll never get it.
Impossible. Yeah.
I honestly feel like when whoever figures it out, I feel like their head may just go, it will be like that moment. They'll light the bonfires to alert Gondor, I think, is really what's going to happen, because it's literally got that much tension at this point. So many people it's in their craw. They just want it. It doesn't even apply anymore. The puzzle doesn't even apply to the game anymore. It doesn't matter. The information is long gone. It doesn't matter. They still just want to know. If you tell someone that they can't know something, they want to know it more. I love it. I love it. Sorry.
I mean, in a situation like that, hypothetically,
I feel like I need I'm better like, or something like that.
And in a situation like that, if you have a self-contained puzzle, and by self-contained, I mean that it introduces its clues, and you are capable of resolving it with just the information you were presented with. That's probably one of the biggest problems with if you run a LARP, be very careful about using escape rooms or puzzles and how you introduce those clues. Because if you're relying on something that someone knows from, you know, who knows when, or something that has like never been found or something, you're shooting your self in the foot, and you will cause your players to get very frustrated.
I will say I totally agree with you. I have seen where you do a really amazing puzzle, but you didn't really quite think out the steps, and you didn't realize that someone could easily feed that information into some computer, and that computer is going to spit out a bunch of stuff. Like in the case of, like, for example, Ryan's tell a secret, you can't feed that into a computer. Like, you can't, that computer is not going to understand, oh, to solve this puzzle, you've got to tell a secret. So putting blocks like that so that people can't just, like, you know, hard crack your puzzle is really important, because then it makes, you know, if anyone can just put it into a computer, then it doesn't feel special. You have to really take a lot of time to make sure that you put those layers of encryption where they can't just brute force it through.
And I feel like that suggestion is especially, I mean, to my experience, I feel like, Mikey, you are a master of long form puzzles. I prefer the physicality and the urgency of short-term puzzles. So I find your puzzles incredibly intimidating. And I mean that in the best kind of way, because I look at them and I'm not really sure. Sometimes I'm not sure where the start point is. And because I can't see the start point, I'm like, and because I'm so used to making short form puzzles where you can kind of see where it starts, like, it makes sense to me. And like, the long form element is part of the puzzle, is learning that it's actually a puzzle, or understanding the puzzle, rather than just presenting objects. If I give you a bomb, you know that your puzzle is involving disarming the bomb. If you can see on the MacGuffin that there are wires, the narrative instantly goes, yeah, you probably have to do something with those wires.
Yeah, I've coined the term the tricky negative. The tricky negative for me is that everything in the puzzle, the long forms that I do, should point to what's missing. So it's like if you're looking up in the trees and you see the branches, and you can sort of see, like, you know, where the branches don't touch, you can see that little crack. Like, that's sort of like what I'm looking for, is like, I want the person to look at the puzzle and go, what's missing? Like, what am I being asked? And, you know, like, that's where I want them to start. And finding the perfect sort of balance between giving them enough information that they can find that on their own, and hiding it well enough that they can't just immediately see it, is very difficult. But once you get it down, once you get the science down, sort of that tricky negative space is the preferred way of puzzles for me. I will say this: one of the media that I've consumed recently was a game called The Witness. And The Witness, for anyone that isn't familiar, is a video game. And literally, you walk into an abandoned place, and you have to just figure it out. No one tells you how to figure out puzzles. But the way that they've engineered it is that they start you off sort of small. And so you're like, oh, okay, so I kind of get this. And then they keep expanding those same rules. And so what I commonly do with my puzzles after consuming that media is I do the same thing. It's like I apply a few little tricks. So the first puzzle in the series is easy. Okay, I get what I'm looking for. And then the next one builds on top of that. And then it adds a little twist to it. And so they're learning without really learning. And it's making them easy to sort of move through those levels of the puzzle. But it's always that tricky negative space that I really enjoy, something I really like.
Mikey, can I ask you a real quick question here? Sure. And Ryan as well, actually. Do you know of any particular, like, names or descriptives of certain puzzles that you found and enjoyed? Like, I find the ones that are created by other people that I've found at least, often have kind of names for the loose kind of ways that they're introduced. Like I know the Einstein Puzzle. Do you have any that you're aware of names so people can kind of like look up and maybe be like, oh, this is an interesting starting point to build my own kind of puzzles if I understand the rules of this puzzle?
So the only ones that I can think of are usually the ones that are math-based, because those are very well studied, those are very well documented. So when you look at logic puzzles that have to deal with numerology, math, or even Greek philosophy, you're going to find a bunch of puzzles that are related to that. Personally, like one of the puzzles that I often default to when I don't know what to do in a mod is what I call the Groundhog's Day puzzle. So, and that's a one-shot that I tend to run, which is essentially everybody goes through this normal slice of life, and then something happens, and then they reset, and no one understands why they reset. So I have them play through that a couple of times, and then they realize that something is different each time. And as they latch onto that something different, then the story continues. But if they go wrong, they reset. And they start to slowly accumulate collectively this base of knowledge. So it's a puzzle that's a storytelling type of puzzle, and they finally get to the end. It's like, oh my God, we all escaped it, like an escape room. But it's just and it's good for a single solitary place where you can't roam around a lot, like Lockdown.
For the record, that style of puzzle you put on us when we were playing at home for Arcana High, and that was really fun and hilarious as a role player, repeating literally the exact same words and cadence that you were doing each time. Putting that out there.
Thank you.
For Aetherhaus specifically, which I tried for Aetherhaus, I started to get away from like madman, like crazy serial killer puzzles, and I tried to do more, academic puzzles. What I did, my first thing was I Googled puzzles that are like Sudoku, and and so basically, if you look at some of the early Aetherhaus, they're literally Sudoku, but instead of Sudoku, I basically pulled out the numbers and instead added gems. So there's that encryption where it's like, okay, I see this seems sort of familiar, but what am I supposed to do with the gems? And so I tailored it to I think that one was alchemy, and it was a different kind of Sudoku where it's not just up and down, but it's I think it's called like puzzle Sudoku, and you have to like sort of the sort of area has to also match up to 9. And so I just used that as a starting point because the structure is already there, and then I just made it my own. So if you're just getting into puzzles and you want a starting point, I would just say like to start with things like that. There's a lot of like puzzles out there that are like Sudoku that have different, like this one right here. This is a where I found off of this website this concept where you have to put numbers down you can only put certain numbers down, and the number to the side, has to match up to this and blah, blah, blah. The point is that the mechanics are out there. If you take the mechanics and just reimagine them to fit your world, it's really easy. Just slap a little bit of like, mumbo jumbo on there, get a little spoopy, and use those same mechanics, and that's it. That's all you got to do. It's really easy.
Right on. Ryan, you said you wanted to add something real quick?
Let's see. So one of the things that happened in one of my puzzles is that it was based off of a Catholic exorcism prayer, not knowing that someone among my players was devoutly Catholic. So they got this right away. However, instead of freaking out, she said, can I use this knowledge to look this up? And it's like, yes. It will give you an advantage, but it won't solve it for you. And that's all I pretty much said. And then, so she thought, can we use our phones? It's like, yes, this is 2018. You can use your phones. So then everyone started to look into their phones, and then everyone started to debate, wait, is this on this website correct, or is this on this website correct? And I'm like, I don't need to do the puzzle. They're going to be debating about this. This is going to be part of the experience. That's great. Just leave that alone. So even if someone has an advantage, play into it knowing that people's heads can deceive themselves, and that becomes part of the experience.
Yes, that's awesome. So I know that we had a few more questions left from our audience, but because we have them typed up, Ryan, if it's okay, I think we could put it on our Facebook page and we can answer it on there so people get the answers. Is that cool?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and kind of wrap things up. Before we wrap it up, though, I did want to thank our patron donors. Thank you so much for donating to our cause here. It's really awesome of you guys to help us out. Mikey, thank you so much for your time and spending with us.
Thank you for having me. This is so much fun.
Yay.
This has been a dream come true.
You're awesome. So we're going to start doing socials, but one little twist to socials. Before you give your socials, I would like to hear one line of advice that you would give to a new puzzle maker, starting with Mikey.
Advice would be to do something that makes you happy. To make a puzzle that makes you personally happy.
Right on. Where can people find you?
You can find me on A Strange Mirror. It's a baby Twitter handle. I just started Twitter. I am now an adult officially. So come friend me. I'm lonely on that side of Twitter. So it's A Strange Mirror. I would love the friends and the company. I'm sad.
Oh.
Kai, darling, what about you? What one advice can you give a new puzzle maker, and then where can we find you?
Whew. Can we come back to me?
Sure, Ryan.
Yes. So before I give my advice, I want to thank Harlequin Viz and Brit the Blue for subscribing to our channel. So thank you so
Yay.
much.
Woo!
One piece of advice when it comes to puzzles, it does come back to the idea of what do you want the puzzle person who solves the puzzle to feel. I know that's a very unusual thing to ask because you think, oh, okay, if the answer is 4, well, that's great. But usually puzzles are part of a bigger story if you do it right, and solving the puzzle should lead to maybe a bigger thing or a bigger situation or even a bigger puzzle that might be at the end of it. And thank you for the hype train. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. That's amazing, guys.
Where can we find you, Ryan?
You could find me here on this channel on live action roleplay, doing Magic Office Hour, where I do project consulting while I play Magic the Gathering. You could find me on Twitter under RyanOMGA and on Instagram under Ryan Omega.
Awesome. Kai, are you ready yet?
Yeah, I guess. I think. There's so many different things that can be done. My suggestion is when you start with puzzles, find a puzzle that you like. Like if you have more than likely when you're coming into making puzzles, there was a puzzle in a video game or a movie or something somewhere that inspired you. Think about how that puzzle was formed and then change the answers and change the answers and change the clues and play around with it that way and use that as the base for creating this puzzle, even if you never use it, but just to kind of whet your appetite and help you get moving with it.
Right on. And where can we find you?
Oh, and my socials. My socials are Yokai Props on pretty much anywhere. That is YOKAI PROPS.
Right on. And I guess I'm the last one. I'm the newbie puzzle person. So my advice to you, to the rest of you newbies, don't be intimidated by these awesome other people making puzzles. Make your own damn puzzle and enjoy it, because everyone had to start somewhere and everybody had to be bad at it first. So just go for it. Oh, and there's a cute little pup. Hi, Tesla.
Oh no!
It's the puzzle master.
The puzzle master.
Puzzle master.
If you guys were looking for me at all on socials, I got 2 different ones. Instagram, Cynthia__Marie. I'm actually doing a little bit of a deep dive on my character from LA by Night, Nellie G. So if you guys want to check out those pictures and a little bit behind her history, you can kind of read it on there. Otherwise, you can follow my shenanigans on Twitter, which is @SynDancer. And I'm going to go ahead and plug, I'm going to be playing on Carnaby Street Case Files. It's a Call of Cthulhu game. It's going to be on Saturday, so just look for the details on either one of my social medias, and you can see what time and what channel. Woo!
That's awesome.
Awesome. Woo!
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 I think we survived this one. At least I feel like I survived this one.
Great
did.
job
It was
leading
amazing.
tonight, Sin.
A lot of fun.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. All right, y'all. I think we're going to raid D20 TV. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
Awesome. So have fun raiding, and we love you, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Hey.